All right, good evening, and this is Rings That Bind. We come your way every Thursday at 7 p.m. with a couple that has another perspective and are willing to share their story. We learn principles, the same principles sometimes, but in different ways because the application actually is different from couple to couple. On Rings That Bind, our goal is to help you maintain your relationship by asking couples who are having a flourishing relationship to come share their stories, inspire us by telling us the challenges they have encountered, what they did to overcome them, so that we also are inspired to face our challenges head on, overcome them as well. This show is brought to you by Bridge Afrique, home of BLISS, and Panacea Ville International. We do this every Thursday. So today on the show, we have a very special couple. I really am looking forward to this conversation with. Yeah, and they are none other than Mr. Bayo Oladejo and his wife, Mrs. Titilola. Welcome, sir and ma, to Rings That Bind.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on this program.
Yeah, it's our pleasure to have you. Excited that you agreed to do this with us. So before we go ahead, we want to get to know you a bit. Could you please introduce yourselves? Let's know who we are having this conversation with.
Okay, because I'm a gentleman, I think I'll ask my wife to introduce herself first. Then I'll do it. I'll do mine after she does. Okay, Ms. Oladejo, over to you.
My name is Titilola Oladejo, and as experience, I had many years banking experience, and right now I'm doing my own business, and we have been together for quite a bit of time, though not too long ago, and I hope that by the time we are through, a lot of people will gain some insights on how to have a good married life. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. Welcome.
Okay, right. So I'll take my Bayo Oladejo again. That's my name. I'm into technology and management consulting. I've also, had some years behind me of career, interesting career, I would say. Still doing work. Sometimes I ask myself, am I supposed to be retired or not? But even if I'm retired, there's no way I can retire because I can get quite restless when it comes to pursuing my career. So into technology and management consulting. And like my wife said, yeah, we married for some years, not too long, but it's been about 7 years. Yeah, about 7 years we've been married, and interesting journey we're on. So I guess about that, between us we have 4 children. As you may already know, we have a blended home. My wife has, of these 4, my wife accounts for 1. I account for 3. I'm asking her if we shouldn't actually balance it up and so that it's like they say, it's one goal, let's draw.
But now you're up 2 goals against 1.
Exactly.
Or 3 against 1.
Exactly. But they are all lovely children, and we're excited about them. We have a lovely home. Excited about the home. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm excited we're having this conversation. You are the first couple will be interviewing who have a blended family, and this conversation is really exciting for me because I also want to understand certain things about how to blend and bring different ideas, different thoughts, different upbringings together, and have that mix. All right. So, but before we delve into that, we have a culture. We want to know a bit of the love story. What happened? How did you meet? What was the spark? What made you decide to settle together?
Okay, maybe I'll take that. I have my wife's approval to take this.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Right. We met in 2013, um, no, December 2013, and we met in the first instance as friends. We met in a virtual community, uh, of people, and coming across each other. A few things, struck me and struck her, and because this is a conversation we've had over and over, sometimes we laugh over it, or we laugh over certain things about how we met. But we met as friends. Found out that there were a number of areas in which we connected. First of all, in the area of faith, belief, there was that resonance between us. She's a Christian, I'm a Christian. We're both not young Christians, we're old Christians, old in the sense of the the amount of experience that we've had working with God as Christians, individually. And so that was a major area of resonance between us. But beyond that, we also realized that we connected socially, looking at the sort of social environments that we both grew up in. Although when we were growing up in those environments, we never knew ourselves. We both grew up practically in Surulere. Yes, she had lived part of her life, Surulere in Lagos, she lived part of her life in Ikoyi, Victoria Island. I, Ekutemeta, eventually landed in Surulere. She also landed in Surulere with her family. But in Surulere, we never knew each other. We had mutual friends, but we never knew each other. By Jove, we never knew each other until the journey of marriage brought us together in 2013. And we started talking about, okay, where did you grow up? Where did you grow up? And to imagine that in Surulere, I lived around the Masha area, if you're familiar with Surulere. She was living around the Ayidegiwa, area. The distance between Masha and Ayidegiwa was barely 1 kilometer, barely 1 kilometer, Yeah, that close, but we never ever, our paths never ever crossed all through the period until much later in life when we met. And we found out, well, we had mutual friends. We shared a number of things in common, growing up in our generation was a generation that went to disco parties, if you understand what I mean. So she did a lot of that. I did quite a bit of that too, She loves music. I love music. So, like I said, the social mix was striking between both of us. And beyond that, in terms of values, we also share a number of values, mutual values. For instance, strong family commitment. Strong on our part, strong on my part. Values around integrity, strong on our part, strong on my part. And there are several other things, but we connected, on those counts, on those parameters. And so learning about each other wasn't a struggle at all, in the days when we met. And so we would sit down, for instance, and have a lot of nostalgic conversations, cast our minds, back in the past. Okay, what did you do at this age? What did you? And we did quite similar things, in different phases of our lives. This gives a bit of a reflection on the journey of how we met and all that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I do. Okay, so we were actually friends. By friends, I mean we could speak to each other at any time and speak about practically anything. So it wasn't difficult to connect properly. And if I wanted to discuss anything with someone, I found out I was calling him to discuss it. I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of family, but I found him to be interesting to speak to and also interesting to have conversations with. And then we shared a lot of mutual, there were things that we could do together that, and making decisions was almost the same type of decisions we would make on certain issues. That was one. And then I also found out that he was my cheerleader. So he never really looked at what had happened to me in the past or what was in my present, but he only wanted to share thoughts with me, share ideas that would make sure that things get better in my life. And then he was, because I'm very independent minded and I was very high up in my career at that point. There were a lot of people that would be a bit, you know how men can be, Nigerian men, especially when you're already very accomplished. He wasn't afraid of that. Of course, he was accomplished in his own right. So it was a matter of, okay, what do you want to do? It pushed me to say, you know what, you can actually leave the industry and then do something for yourself. You're too smart to continue to work for other people. You can start your own business and all that. So he actually pushed me to be the best of myself and to do things that, you know, I was shying away from, actually, you know, making certain decisions that I knew would help me, but I was a bit afraid to make those decisions. So, in all, I believe that the thing that struck me most was that ability to converse and to tell me the truth without being annoying. So he could say things to me that most people probably would not tell me, and I wasn't annoyed because of those things he said. I took them in my stride and, you know, tried to work on certain things that I needed to work on. And in terms of kindness, you know, and fear of God, because we say, okay, this guy loves God, he goes to church, he does this, he does that, but does he fear God? If someone doesn't fear God, there are certain things that they were capable of doing. So I knew he wasn't capable of doing some things that I had experienced in the past. And of course, that endeared me to him totally. He wasn't like some of the men that you see, because a lot of people say, oh, men cheat. And I'll say, no, don't generalize because you're going through that. Not everybody does those kind of things. Not everybody puts down a woman. Not every man doesn't help a woman. You know, different things that, you know, men typically, you say, oh, typically this is what a man does. Not everybody does that. Everybody has, of course, everybody has things they need to work on, but there are some things that some people don't just do. So don't say because that's your experience, that's what we do. So it was we were friends. Let me end it like that.
Wow, fantastic. Like, I love the fact that you talk a lot about common values, your values for spirituality, your values for the kind of music you listen to, you know, and all. Because I think that if you have someone who you share a lot of similarities with, especially on a value level, it is easy to walk through life together. Your conflicts are less because most times we say people don't fight, it's their values that clash. What is important to one person is not as important as it is to the other, and all that, and then clashes come. So having somebody that you share the same value with helps you to have a smoother sail, so to say. And so I love that. And I like the fact that you guys have a lot of fun, you know, and then you have memories. Well, now that's interesting because you have these memories probably with very similar people in your circles, but you never met. Like it wasn't time yet for the both of you to meet. But right now, you can have a reminiscence of a past that you shared in a funny way together, right? You did almost the same things, but just in different spaces with different people. That's really interesting and lovely to hear. So when you decided to move into marriage and get married, the what was the because I know you have, how old are your children, sir?
Okay, I'll give you the ages of all of them because, like I said, it's a blended family.
Yeah.
So my wife has a daughter. I've got 3 children, 2 girls and a boy.
Okay.
But as things stand, between us, we both have 4 children, right?
Yeah.
Um, the first, and that's my wife's daughter. So she's the first daughter of the home. Just like you have the first son of Nigeria and the first daughter of Nigeria. So we also
Yeah.
have the first daughter of our family. So her name is Olamide. Olamide is 33.
Okay.
And after Olamide is Dara. Dara is going to be 28 this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yes,
Yes.
she's going to be 28 this year. Then after Dara is Tito, a girl. Tito was 24 this year, May this year. And the baby of the home, Itaolua, is 19, really.
No, it's 18.
He's now 19.
No.
Sorry. Okay, now is he right? Debating. Okay.
It's 19 in November.
She's right. I was wrong. He was born in 2005. He's 18. So it's going to be, but you know those young people, he's not yet 19, but he's
Yeah, but
feeling
they already told,
like
yeah.
19 already. Exactly.
What?
So that's how I was saying he's 19.
It's going to be 19 in November.
He's going to be 19 in November. He's
Okay,
18. So,
fantastic. Yeah, I used to do that too. My birthday is actually in November, but the moment we cross into a new year, my age has changed automatically.
now you talk. Now you speak.
So I can relate. All right. So obviously you didn't start with very little children when you got married. So were there some oppositions or some hesitations or concerns when you decided to get married?
Opposition, no, clearly no. Concerns, certainly yes. I mean, because, okay, one of the interesting things about my wife and I is that we are both practical, and we discuss a lot. Well, you'll hear in many marriages, they struggle due to poor communication or lack of it. Interestingly, in our case, communication ranks maybe like 98% in our home and relationship.
That's fantastic.
We talk about virtually everything and anything. Now, and to a large extent, women can also be a lot more perceptive than men, generally speaking. So in the days before we got married and even after we got married, so we're talking, okay, what do we think the concerns of the children would be either way, about this relationship? How can we help address those concerns? And they were real concerns, and they were concerns of ensuring that there was going to be a seamlessness in the sort of blend that we were looking forward to in the home, in the marriage. And so we spent time talking about those things. There were moments when my wife particularly observed one or two things. For instance, one or two things coming from what were two of my children, my own children. And we talked about it. But beyond talking about it, part of what I particularly also did in recognition of the things she highlighted, which I acknowledged were real, because it's one thing to discuss certain things. It's another thing to acknowledge that those things truly exist and that there's a need to address them. So this sort of trajectory we walked through was to sit down, talk about those things, but not only talk about them, also be deliberate in the way we would attempt to address those things. The ones I needed to address were clear to me. The ones she needed to address were also clear to her. And we're both committed to working on those things. Between she and I, on one hand, and between myself and my children, on another hand, then between her and her daughter on the third hand. Incidentally, the sort of structure we have. Okay, when we got married, there was just the baby of the house in Nigeria when we got married. I mean, and he was actually the best boy, at the wedding. So he was barely, how old was he?
Like
9, 10? No, it was barely 10. It was about 10 when it happened, 10 going on 11 when it happened. So he was the only one in Nigeria with us. Her own daughter had been in Canada for some years. My first daughter was also in Canada, by Jove. My second daughter was also in Canada, by Jove. I mean, all at school, So he was a young man who was at home with us. So maybe that also was helpful in some way, in managing through the blending process. Then the folks who were abroad, we also made deliberate effort to engage with them. We talked a lot. What do you think about this? Of course, before we got married, on my part, I had conversations with my children. This was what I was going into. I wanted not necessarily their approval, but I thought I needed their buy-in, so to speak. I believed it was important. That was something I was sensitive to. On my wife's part too, she had conversations with her daughter, of course, much older than the other three, and just to also be sure that there was buy-in on our part. The feedbacks we got was, well, you guys have fun. I mean, from all of them, you guys have fun. And we started building the castle of fun around ourselves. And issues occasionally would come up, but we were able to deal with those issues, address them maturely with clear understanding. And progressively, the relationship, we were able to overcome those issues. Let me put it that way, progressively. And today, after 7 years, those issues are thinned out significantly. And significantly. And we have no regrets, doing this. We have no regrets doing it at all, And for me, part of the consideration for me, for instance, when my wife and I were going to embark on this journey, it was clear to me that whoever I was going to settle down with would have to be someone who is extremely mature in the mind. And I mean, I can tell you for free, this woman sitting beside me is extremely mature in her mind, extremely mature in her mind. And she would bear me witness. There are times when I sit down with her and I reflect on our life together. 7 years actually seems like we've been married like 30 years. That's the truth, and we're reflecting on it. And I just say to her, Titilola, I mean, thank you for making life easy for me. I mean, I say that to her, looking at the sort of cultural environment we come from. Okay, she's the woman coming into my home, so to speak, but we both agreed we were going to live a blended life together and all of that. But because of the peculiarities of the cultural environment we live in, there's the burden of pressure that shifted more on her than on the man, and we talked a lot about that, and at some point I knew this was something I needed to consciously deal with, to also help her bed into the relationship with the least of resistance and troubles. And thankfully, on the extended family side, no issues at all. No issues at all, on both parts. No issues at all, She has a great time with my folks, I mean, they're one or two of my folks who would say things to her that I don't even know. They would discuss, I mean, deep things that I'm not even aware of. And each time I hear them talk, I mean, you need to see her banter with my immediate younger brother. I mean, they haul stuff at themselves, jokes, and I mean, it's fun. And with her folks, I mean, for me, no issues at all. I mean, so I'll say God has been gracious to us, that we don't have inhibitions that many blended homes would experience, or upheavals that they would experience. We don't experience those things. I mean, before we both got married, again, because we're people of faith, I spent time, trusting God. I mean, she also did, and we shared those experiences after we met, and it was like, okay, answer prayers. I mean, and the experience, when we reflect on it, we keep saying to ourselves over and over, this is answer prayers. I mean, because neither of us planned it. We never even imagined we would meet, especially even considering the circumstances under which we met, but here we are today, having an exciting life together,
Wow, interesting. Now, before you come in, Ma, I wanted to just highlight a few things that he said, especially for the benefit of our listener that may just have joined us. We are discussing blended families, really, because this is the story and the experience of our guests today on the show, Mr. Bayo and Mrs. Titilola Olabanjo. And
Oladejo.
We're going to find you.
Oladejo, yes. So
and the fine, because we spend dollars in Nigeria, it has to be $1 fine.
Okay, so let me breathe.
On
When we are done, we will have this conversation. Okay, but it's Oladejo, and they have been telling us about their wonderful family, their experience as a blended home and all. And he just made some points that I thought were very important. Before they decided to get, or while they had decided to get married, right? After the decision, before actually proceeding to do that, they both had conversations with their children about what is going to happen. I think that's something that a lot of people miss out. Now, when children are small, some people think that because they are small, they shouldn't be told, or you shouldn't have those kinds of conversations. But whether they are small or big, I think that it's a huge part of bringing people together, whether it's family or whatever. Once you are going to be interacting with these people regularly, it's also important that you get their support as you move in life. And so it was so powerful that the both of you had these conversations with your kids before you came into this union. Now, there are certain things you said, there are a lot, and I want to pick them a piece and ask some questions. But before I do that, please, Ma, can you just weigh in on some of the things you said? Because I know you wanted to say something. Then I'll come back and pick out a few things and ask for clarification.
Okay, so in terms of communicating and talking about everything, so we talked about money, the family, the children, where we would live, everything. How do we manage the home and all that? So it was a discussion that bordered on practically everything we could think about, and we agreed on several things. So I think that also helped to jumpstart a good relationship between us. So because we had agreed on these things, it would be difficult to go back on them, although we could still discuss and amend some things that we had agreed on. But what was most important is, so who was going to give money to this person? Your dad and your mom, how do we take care of them? My daughter, your daughter, how do we take care of them? Everything. We spoke about everything. And that really helped us to move smoothly into the relationship. We were actually not living in the same city before. I was in Lagos and he was in Abuja. So we had to fly back and forth a lot. And of course, that was a bit strenuous, but we still didn't have issues around that, seeing each other and, being friends with each other. So it wasn't a problem. And then we had times that, of course, we had set aside that, okay, so when I'm coming back from work, then I was still working, I would call in the car. So it was like a ritual. So if I didn't call, it was odd. And then, he could ask, where have you been? What are you doing? Why haven't you called? And we had all of that to ensure that we got along very well. And aside from that, when I went into the home, my first thought was to be a mother to everybody. So it wasn't a matter of, oh, this is my child, this is your child. It was a deliberate attempt to say, I'm going to be mother to these people or to these children, so that it to be smooth to, to run the family. And I didn't want him, having issues of problems between me and the kids. And like you said, maybe because I was older too, I was able to manage the kids and manage them better. And I didn't go to the house, because then I had my own house in Lagos. He had one in Abuja. But when I moved to Abuja, I didn't go there to change things. So I wasn't quick to, okay, no, let's do that. Let's do that. This I will do. This I will do. No, I said, how do you want us to do it? So I think that also helped in the smooth coming together. So really, it was a matter of time. Let's look at time to change things. So over time, things started to, of course, change to what I wanted. And then, of course, it was now a lot like, okay, Titi, what do you want this to look like? Or what do you want this? Because I didn't fight. I wasn't struggling. I wasn't fighting the children, fighting himself, or fighting everybody. I just went there and said, look, I will leave everything as is, and then I'll, take time to, oh, let's do it this way, or let's do it that way. And then we started to do things in a different way. But over and above that, I think one of the things that we also do is we don't quarrel, we disagree. We disagree a lot on many things, but we don't quarrel. So what we do is, you have disagreed. It can be, of course, can be very strong disagreements too, because I'm a very strong-willed person, and I have opinions, very strong opinions. He too has strong opinions. So sometimes we go back and forth on an opinion. But what we try to do is, we don't sleep on those things. If it happens that we sleep on it, then the next day we talk about it. But we must talk about it, and we must land on something. So in talking about it, we're digging deeper. So why do you think this should be this? What do you think we should do about it? So how would it help both of us? Because we're in this thing together. We don't want to have issues. We're not young. We don't want to start having issues at this age. So what I do is, and then, I tried to get to know the kids as well. And then, he knows mine. They are friends. So she's always looking up to, talking to him and asking his opinion about different things. Me and the kids too. His first daughter, who is our second daughter now, she and I, sometimes we discuss things that he doesn't even know about. So she comes to me, we talk about different things, guys, different things, and he's not in the know. So what we just try to do is, we all say, we all talk about love, the 1 Corinthians 13 love, but in putting it into practice, it works. It actually works when behind everything you do, there's love. If there's no love behind it, and it's just you're just doing those things, then you find out that those things they may work for a bit, but everything will fall apart after a while. But if you stand on that love, so you're doing everything out of love, you can make mistakes, but you correct yourself, because if everything is done in love, then it's easier to agree on things. But if it's not done in love, then, and then I'm a traditional plus modern person. So I'm well traveled, well everything. However, there's certain rules that I feel that a woman should do. I'm sorry, just 2 minutes. A woman, of course, should respect her husband totally. That's non-negotiable for me. Number one. Number two, in doing the things in the house, there's certain roles that are just women roles. He's not pushing me to cook, or no. There are roles that come naturally to me. You understand? So I do those roles, and he helps me because he sees me doing them. He comes to help me. when I'm in the kitchen, I will come and if I need him, I will go and hey, please now come and help me do this one. Well, you know, so I'm not challenging, I'm not bickering, and we are able to do those roles and you know, work together to ensure that these roles they, while not being so traditional, but they're still a bit traditional. And some things come to you naturally, some things come to you naturally. Like if I want to climb and collect something, it comes to you more naturally. So I beg, oh yeah, come now, come and let me do this or that. But what I'm saying is that I've realized that most women now want to mix those roles together and say, okay, just sitting down, just sitting down there. If you do that, yeah, he will just sit down there and you'll quarrel with him. But if you wisely integrate him into the thing. And if you are friends, actually, because when I'm in the kitchen, he's on his own, so he will come and start gisting with me. So
Exactly.
because of this thing, we do the things together. So, like I said, it's both modern and then traditional. If you have a mix of the two, you actually have a good relationship with your husband.
Yeah, as you spoke, especially when you were talking about how you came into the home and you weren't fast with changing things. It just made me see so much of your experience, because if your career working as an executive, and all that, you are able to learn the benefits of coming with a collaborative kind of system instead of an authoritative kind of system. And that was just what you applied there. And I believe that it works so well if people know how to apply it. Yes, you are now the woman of the house. It's now your home. But if you had come in exacting force to say, let them know that a woman has come into this home, then it would have rubbed off on others really, really hard. And the blowback would have been challenging to manage. So I really love that. I hope that a listener, you're picking that when you come into a system, especially with this, that there are already kids in the home, you don't want to come in and become the woman, like stand firm. You want to come in, even though you would still have authority, but you also want to start with collaboration, conversations, talking, and then using influence to guide people instead of authority, power, force. And also that just stood out to me like huge, as you spoke. And then you were also talking about your conversations that you had earlier. You talked about finance, you talked about all the things that you possibly would remember. Now, usually I tell people, especially when they come to do premarital counseling, that it's important that you talk as much as you can, that you spend a lot of that courtship time having these conversations, because those things eventually are the things that pull down homes. You say, oh, I thought, because sometimes we just come into marriage with ideas. We've not shared those ideas. The other person doesn't even know the expectation that we have. We've not negotiated those things. And then eventually they begin to be issues. And somebody say, but this is what a man is supposed to do. Who told you? Sometimes those things that you said is what somebody is supposed to do is your own ideology, maybe because of where you grew, the kinds of experiences you had, and all and all. Then finally, you talked about the issue of roles in the home. I think this is vital because, like you said rightly, a lot of us are trying to mix this, and sometimes the mix doesn't just work. I remember some time ago, I saw a post on Facebook. I was mad about the post, so I copied it and made some comments. It says that, man, if you come home and your wife has not cooked, instead of grumbling around, your house is not a restaurant, get into the kitchen and cook. So for me, it hit me the wrong way, because yes, it's good for men to cook. My husband cooks, but I would not use that tone with him to say, this is not a restaurant, for God's sake, And I think that a lot of us young women these days are mixing these things up. We're seeing a lot on social media. We're seeing a lot in movies and all. So we are getting our values mixed with I don't know what to call those things, beliefs that eventually hurt our marriage and hurt us as a people. So that is very vital, and I like the way you you use that in your home and how you use that approach. He still helps, he still does the things that he does, but you know what your primary roles are. He also has primary roles, and then we find a blend in between, and then the thing just works. So for me, that was really, really huge. So I want to ask you, Ma, when you came, did you how you had started talking about it when you talked about using collaboration and all. So how did you address issues of discipline, especially with his own children when they came up? How did you address that? I want to get your perspective on this.
Okay, so because they were naturally not too young, per se, um, it was a bit easier to deal. And then, like he said, three of the kids were out, only one was in.
Mm.
So it was just a matter of if he does something, I just say, oh, Titilola, that's not what to do. This is not how to do it. And, and then I probably go tell him that, oh, this is what he did. And this is what I think he shouldn't do. And then we'll talk about it. Then he calls him as well. And they talk to him. You understand? So more often than not, what I wasn't, even when things look like I should get very angry, I kept my cool and said, look, this is not what you should do, or this is wrong. You understand? Maybe talk to him there, and then I speak to him as well. Some things, well, I won't even talk about. I just, go to him, and then I tell him what had happened, because I knew the sensitivities were very high for me to insist. Oh, okay, no, go and face the wall, things like that. I believed that the resistance would be very high, and the correction may be lost in the process of the resistance. So what I did was, I would say in a firm voice, this is wrong. No, you can't do this. I'm sorry, you can't do this, or this is not what you should do. But we didn't have too much of that kind of friction anyway. But when it came up, that's what I did. And then I would tell him, oh, this is what happened. Let's address it together. Like I said, maybe we're blessed to agree on most things, or mode of punishment, more what to do. Do we ground this person? You understand? So we kind of agree on those things, and so it was a lot easier. And the other kids, they were in Canada, so we really didn't have those interactions. Although sometimes we went for family visits to Canada, and we're all together, but there wasn't so much of that friction. Like I said, maybe we're just blessed that the friction wasn't so high. You understand? So when we had those times, I went back to him. Usually, I went back and I mentioned it. I didn't ever keep quiet about it. So it wasn't I'm steaming or getting angry somewhere and I'm not talking about it. I will say, oh yes, I know I might sound like a broken record, or I might sound like this, but I need to talk about it. Or I will say, I know sometimes I sound like I'm nagging. However, we need to talk about it. But what I always did was actually bring it up to him. Always. Women, like I said, not agree on everything, because we're individuals with different opinions. But the strongest thing was that we are willing to work it out. Is that willingness to say, you know what, this thing is not going to affect our relationship. Just kids, they will go now after a while. They leave the house, go their way. There will be two of us left. So we have to grow that relationship, or grow that relationship with them, taking them in with us and letting them go as well. As of today now, all of them are grown. The last born, we just went to drop him in Canada in fact, I went with him. And that's why when he was saying, is he 18? I stayed in Canada until he was 18 in November. That's why I told you, no, he's going to be 19 this year. So we've taken him to school. So how many times would we see him? Once in a while. You understand? So there was no need to that for that. And maybe I don't get angry very easily. Maybe that also helps. I take my time to make, to decide and then to get angry. So maybe that helps, because I can actually absorb things. So I could absorb some things, find it very annoying, or absorb it, and then go to him and say, look, this is what happened. then we can agree on what I will do to the child or what you will do to the child. So I wasn't going to knock everybody on the head, like I said, because I wanted that smooth beginning, so that by the time I'm even making specific decisions, by that everybody would have grown together and would have understood that this person is part of our family and she can make those decisions. You understand? So I think that's also helped us to ensure that the friction wasn't so it's not so bad that it will damage the relationship.
Wow, fantastic. So you want to add anything to this?
Yes, I mean, I was going to say, when she said, oh, so the last one, when he was going to school, we took him. I was going to say, no, you took him, not we. Not we. And I mean, the circumstances under which or surrounding which the young man had to go to school. I didn't have a visa to travel. Visa had expired because of COVID. It took the Canadians forever and they just kept at it. But she had a valid visa, so she had to go settle him at school. Do a rewind of 3 months before then, June.
What about this now? Which case? Which rubbish case? Don't try me.
Wait. See this guy where you see so. I wait till you want you surprise you.
I want to give my most active fan this car on the 20th. Hello guys, what's up? It's your boy Guy Amos, and guys, I'm here with Magazine TV and my team leader. So guys, today is my girlfriend's birthday, and guys, I want to pull a surprise on her.
It takes for someone who is truly,
guys, if my girlfriend can be humble and be an understanding girlfriend,
to do what she did,
guys, I'll give her this.
Okay, I'll say this
Package.
I'm talking about cultural environment issues, because cultural environment issues are actually,
yes, we're coming to that point.
Yes.
You know that this is a cake
in how, based on our own experience, how a blended family works or succeeds or not. I'll just use
and the
one
way
illustration. Yes, I used to be married before I got married to my wife. My previous wife passed. So I became a widower, so to speak. Now, I had a good relationship with her, and her family. Before my wife and I got married, I thought it was necessary to visit my late wife's parents, her family, to out of a sense of deep respect to them, to let them know of my plans. It wasn't as if it was compulsory, but again, because of the sort of upbringing and understanding of deep issues that one has got, I thought it was most appropriate to approach them, to discuss it with them. I did. They actually gave me their consent.
It to be different, you get.
My father-in-law then, who is now late too, part of what he said to me was that he had actually been thinking.
The philanthropist will be. Anyway, shall I watch the rest of the video? And to my viewers and my lucky fans, guys, I guess something on the comment section. Stay tuned to the video and cash fun. More love to the streets. All right, guys, she's inside and she's inside my house and she does
discuss it with them and announce my plan. Gave him a lot of pleasure, so he actually blessed me, prayed for me, and his wife also blessed me, prayed for me. But they operated in a strictly traditional environment, So my mother-in-law then, particularly, I knew she had deep concerns, particularly for the children. I'm sure you would understand why that was so. Again, it goes back to the issues of the cultural environment that we all live in. Concerns genuine, no doubt. So in her mind, she'll be thinking, I hope this new woman will not ill-treat the children. That's a typical thinking when you watch Nollywood movies, bad bad stepmother, bad stepchildren and things, and they have conflicts and all that. So I think the sort of concern she had in her mind was, hope this woman will not ill-treat the children, these beautiful children, you know. But as God would make it work for us, I mean, I didn't have any doubts in my spirit what was going to happen. But I considered to the fact that my mother-in-law then had those concerns in her mind. Now, contrary to her expectations, the feedbacks she was now getting, not from third parties, directly from the children, the feedbacks were actually positive, complimentary, encouraging. I mean, I can tell you with every sense of confidence today that between my wife and my mother, well, she's still my mother, you know, exactly, because I took her as my mom, you know, that was the sort of relationship I had with her. In that family, they actually took me as their first son because I was married to their first daughter. Well, unfortunately, they passed, you know. Now, today, I can tell you without blinking that between my wife and Mama, she lives in Ibadan, they are best of friends. Wow. I mean, she's even like, come, when are you coming to say, you need to come and say hello to me. You know, when she hears stories of, okay, when my first daughter graduated, we traveled together. We all went, you know, to Canada for our graduation. When my second daughter graduated, she was the one who could go. I couldn't go. When the baby of the house was going to school, she was the one who could go. I couldn't go because I was stranded. I didn't have a visa, you know, to travel. But she was the one who carried all of that on her head and went, you know. And actually, when she went to board the young man at school, she had to stay extra time because according to the Canadians, the young man was not yet 18 when he arrived in Canada. And going by their laws, there was a custodianship procedure we needed to go through. So for that reason, she had to stay back until the young man clocked. Okay, they traveled in September last year. The young man thankfully clocked 18 in November. So she had to wait. She was meant to have returned before end of September, but she had to wait until November 15 or late November before she returned to Nigeria. I mean, at a lot of discomfort to her, but it was like, I'll do it because I've taken this role of motherhood, you know, with these children. I mean, so it's something I deeply appreciate, and she knows it, and I say it to her, you know. I mean, so why have I told this story? I was just trying to reflect on the perspective of love. I mean, when you exude it from your heart, truly, you can see the manifestation in reality. I mean, so there are people also in the cultural environment, still talking about the cultural environment, people who, yes, they mean well for you. Maybe people in church, people around, they mean well for you, but they also have those concerns. Hope this woman will treat those children well, or, you know, that kind of thing. But they are amazed, pleasantly amazed to now hear stories of, I mean, they are not hearing any stories of fights between my wife and children. Rather, the stories they are hearing are stories of, oh, she even traveled to Canada to go and see them. Oh, she even did this to go and see them. I mean, so, I mean, so I think it was 2019, she just woke up, and between her and my daughter, first daughter, who is back in Nigeria, she's actually the landlady of the Lagos house. She's the landlady of the Lagos house. I mean, so she's the one who takes care of the house when we're not here and all that. You know, so 2019 thereabouts. Between her and my daughter, they did the kamikaze between themselves, and they just woke up one day and said they were going to Dubai. I said, "You're going to Dubai without me. You're not taking me along." They said, "No, it's a ladies' right, you know." So they took off, and so I see the way she has managed, you know, the blending process. Fantastic. You know, I concede it to her. Fantastic.
So let me just mention something before you speak. I noticed that Nigerians would say, "I hope she's treating the kids right," but nobody has ever asked if she's treating my daughter right. I mean, why are we like that?
I think it's a cultural thing.
Cultural environment, But I
Yeah.
must say, between our daughter and I, we have a fantastic relationship.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
Well, so I think it's a cultural thing. Then the second thing I think is because, especially when the children are young, they stay with the mom more. They spend more time with her. So how she treats them will be more visible, more than he that just because he spends more time working, and less time with the children. So for those two reasons, I think that's why a lot of people are more concerned about the woman treating the children right in the home. And then another thing is that if the child is the woman's, the child spends more time with the mother. So probably if the man would maltreat, it may be refusing to give certain kinds of resources, but the child is with the mother, so that relational part, that child doesn't suffer so much from it. But I want to come back to these cultural things. He mentioned that there were certain expectations, because even as I reflected on our conversation, I know that the Yoruba culture is a very like neat culture. So I already expected that there will be relations between you and his late wife's family, and then also you're managing relationships with his own family, with his late wife's family, with your family. So it's like you have like three families coming, and yes, your daughter's father's family as well. So you have these families come in and play. So what were some of the maybe like point some of the things culturally that were expected of you that you had to walk through or navigate?
Okay, so we don't all live in the same place. So I think that has helped significantly. Or maybe even if we did, there won't be any issues. But I'm saying, so interacting is not that difficult. Like the in-laws, his in-laws, that we don't see, in the sense that they live in a different location entirely. They live in Ibadan. We live in Abuja and Lagos. So all we do is phone conversations from time to time. You understand? So when she calls or she calls the kids, she can say, "Oh, give it to your stepmom. Let me speak with her." Then we'll just gist, and that's it. So there's really no room. There's no room for a lot of disagreements. Let me put it that way. And I think what would have caused the disagreement would have been if the kids reported any issues or any incidents, which I don't think they did. So I didn't have to have much. I didn't have to manage that relationship so much. Just, oh, how are you? How are you doing? We greet, we say this, we just gist about general things and the kids, and that's it. So for that, I didn't have any issues. For his parents, I'm orphaned, so my parents are late. Two of them are late, so we don't have that. We don't have issues of only my aunties, my uncles, and we have good relationship with them. Or for his parents, his father calls me his girlfriend, and we're always joking about it. So I have a very good relationship with him. My mother-in-law, I have a wonderful relationship. She's my namesake, so we got along very easy. So and like I said before, I don't want to say it as if there are no issues, right? But because we don't live here permanently, the propensity for there to be issues is very reduced. It's very low. So I come to Lagos, I go visit them. What is the fight? What will we fight about? That's the way I reason. What can she do to me within those number of hours that would so cause me to start to quarrel? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. And generally, like I said, I absorb things, and and if I find the things not too right, I talk to the person or I talk to my husband. So we haven't had such incidences. Is sisters and brothers, they're all my friends. We get along very well. And then maybe because we're Christians too. So maybe that also helps to I'm talking we're Christians, and we we practice Christianity, because you can be Christians and not practice.
Not practice.
So maybe that also helps to, you know, refine that relationship. And I don't put my mouth in people's business. So they won't say, oh, the Titi said this, or she did that, or she pushed somebody down, or, you know, those kind of things that happen in Yoruba families. Because I mean, growing up, I know a lot of quarrels. One auntie will quarrel, one sister will quarrel. You know, we always settling fights. But for me, I learned a lot from that, and I said to myself, when I have my own family, I would, you know, there'll be a little bit of a distance. You know, there's a way you can put a distance between you and someone, that you'll be nice, you'll be good, but they want to go to cause the quarrel. How many hours do we have to stay together? So even if people are nasty to me, then I will probably discuss it with him that, look, this person was nasty. But it hasn't even happened. And thank God for that. So navigating hasn't been difficult for me. I think it's a blessing too. And maybe because of my experiences too in the past, I could use those experiences to because I was married too before. My ex-husband is late too. But those experiences, I brought it to bear in this new relationship. So in my mind, what can cause the quarrel? I mean, you have to really be looking for trouble for me to fight you. So, and if you're looking for that trouble, then we can now talk about it, or, you know, negotiate it, or we discuss with him. So navigating relationships hasn't been much of, it hasn't been any, in fact, it's a non-issue for me. And my sister and him, they're very close. My sister in America, they're very friendly. So we didn't have, I don't know, we haven't had that concern of extended families, and we're very careful for other extended families. So he tells me everything, and I tell him everything. So we both agree, oh, this person is doing this. Should we give him money? Should we not give him money? What should we do about this? So there's really no conflict in that regard. So like I said, I think I'm just blessed to have that, because I know a lot of families that they would say a lot of things that go wrong in their families, and, you know, things that, you know, like even things that would annoy the wife. In my previous relationship, it was bad. Do you understand? So now, but I think I'm just blessed with this one, because in the other relationship, the in-laws, was just the bad. I tried not to get angry, tried not to, you understand, not to have any go into any quarrels, but, you know, it was almost like people goading you and goading you and goading you. But here I haven't had those experiences.
Wow, interesting. So I see two things play. Yes, there's the part of God directing our paths to meet people and have peace, kind of. Then also there's the place of you learning from previous experiences. I think that that's the benefits we have as humans, that we have the ability to look inwards and look at ourselves, retrospect, because that helps us a lot to check what we have done before, what we are doing now, and make adjustments. So for me, that's the benefit of, like, you had a second chance to come into a marriage. Like, some other people have not had that second chance, because your second chance gave you opportunities for both of you to look back at the things that worked, the things that didn't work, what you want better, to do better and all. And now you have an opportunity to put them back into use and create a beautiful experience from it. So, how long was your wife, had your wife passed before you got married?
3 years.
3 years.
My late wife passed in 2013, July, and barely 3 years after, a little over 3 years after. So yeah, about 3 years after I got married. Yeah, exactly 3 years after I got married.
Well, so was it challenging after she passed, looking back at the relationship you had, and or was it a challenging decision to remarry?
I'll say yes and no. The yes part, you know, I mean, I was married to my late wife we got married in 1994, December 1994, and she passed in 2013. I mean, so we were married for about 20 years. Before we got married, we had, dated, courted for about 4 years. And so this was one had invested like 25 years of one's life in. And so to now see that, disappear, go up in smoke, so to speak, it wasn't an easy experience. But I also knew while I was going through the grieving experience and I was hurting and healing, it was also apparent, clear to me that moving forward, there was no way I would want to go on with life or go ahead with life as a single man. I sat down to tell myself that truth, and I came to that realization. When I was going through the healing process, I could reason a lot clearer. I spent time praying and asking God. Well, that's the normal thing to do for a Christian, And it was when it was getting clearer in my mind, the sort of direction in which I ought to go, that I actually sat. Actually, before I met her, I'd sat with my children. I think we traveled to the US or something, and we were in the hotel room, and I was also discussing life with them, generally. And I was sharing my thoughts, my desires, my expectations, my projections with them. And I told them that moving forward, it's important for all of us to have clarity that's between me and the children on specific steps we needed to take as part of the healing experience. I haven't lost my wife and their mom. And I shared part of my own experience with them. I'm not sure I would want to continue to live as a single person. At some point, I look forward to living with someone again, having a companion. That was the word I used. And when I met her, essentially it was the same, similar kinds of aspirations and desires we shared. For one, I said I wanted a companion. I wanted someone who would be my friend. I wasn't desirous of having any more children. And similar to her desires, she also wasn't desirous of having any children. She wanted a companion and a friend. And for me, it was like, okay, like they say, 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. That's sort of arithmetic that inspired between both of us. To the extent that years one had invested a lifetime in a previous relationship, it wasn't an easy decision to make. But to the extent, I'm just trying to summarize, to the extent that I also sat down to introspect, to reflect, and to say, okay, moving forward, what are some of the things? I actually even believed that getting married again would also help the healing process for me. That was part of the insights that I got. Making the decision to remarry, yes, wasn't tough. I was willing to and ready to also deal with maybe any objections that may arise. And I must tell you, there were a couple of objections, really, initially from my children. Should I call them objections? Well, maybe not objections, but reservations that were expressed. And I'll share those reservations with you. I'm a practical person. And maybe one of the things that is striking between both of us, we're both quite practical, And so I guess that's part of why we don't have too many issues in our relationship. Now, when I was having this conversation with my children, it was in the US. I remember vividly. My son, let me start with my first daughter. My first daughter, her reaction was like, "Daddy, not on your life. No way, you can't do it." That was her reaction. My second daughter, her reaction was, "Daddy, if you remarry, whoever it is you marry, I don't even see myself calling that person mommy. That's one. Then two, she's a deep person. I mean, deep. What would mommy's parents, what do you think they would say? How do you think they would feel? That was what she said. My son, what he said was, Daddy, well, if you want to marry, you can marry, but please don't have any other children or child. That was his own concern, reservation. So different concerns they raised. What was my response to my first daughter, who said, no, Daddy, don't even say it. No. What I said to her was, okay, I heard her, I acknowledged, her feeling. It wasn't like I had taken a decision then. I was just sharing a thought with them. But that I believe that with time, God would help us deal with the whatever inhibitions that we may have. That was my response to my first daughter. To my second daughter, my response was, well, let's assume I get married. You don't necessarily need to call the person mommy, because she's actually not your mommy, but what I think will be most important is you have a relationship with the person, and it's a nice relationship, respectful relationship, healthy relationship. On the second count of what would mommy's parents say, what I said to her was, well, honestly, I don't know what they would say, but I want to believe that when we get to that bridge, we will cross it. To my son, what I said was, okay, trust me, I don't plan to have any other children. And I meant it. I mean, I wasn't posting him, and I meant it, because that was one major decision I had made even before I met her. Now, when we now met and we were dating and going through the process, in the course of it, my first daughter graduated. We all traveled to Canada together. We all had a nice time. Fine. Then there was a trip she made to Canada after that graduation, and she traveled. Her own daughter was living in a different province from my children. Her daughter was living in Manitoba, Winnipeg. My own children were living in Toronto. So she traveled to go visit her daughter one year, I think it was 2016 or so, I can't quite remember, and flew to Winnipeg. Then from Winnipeg, she and her daughter flew to Toronto to go spend time with my daughters, and so she has invested a lot, and I acknowledge it all the time. She's invested a lot. Not when I say invested, I'm not even looking at the money. I mean, that's not the important thing. She has invested emotions, a lot of emotions into this, and I'm thankful to God that that investment, God is paying it back. God is paying it back. Do I say God? No, God has paid it back. He's not paying it. He has paid it back. Really, I mean, so somehow between her and my first daughter, they started striking it off somehow. My second daughter was a bit, withdrawn. I mean, I was talking about issues. These were some of the issues. She was a bit withdrawn, although I think she has loosened up now. Now the pet name my first daughter calls her, Mommy T. That's what she calls her, Mommy T. That's what my second daughter calls her today. My son, calls her Auntie Titi. He's comfortable with it, and we're all good with it, Auntie Titi. Our own daughter sees me. I'm not her dad in the real sense of it. No, I'm not a biological dad. What she's most comfortable with is she calls me Mr. B. I'm okay with it. And she doesn't want to call me Uncle Bayo, because I'm also, she sees me, she perceives me as deserving to be called something deeper than uncle, and not an uncle. So she calls me Mr. B. It's chic, it's fun, it's funky, fine, and so I don't have any inhibitions at all. I mean, so these are some of the things we've had to try to deal with, manage. I mean, my son, when they both went to Canada, I mean, they gisted, he would visit her, because she stayed at her daughter's place in Winnipeg. So when they arrived, it was her daughter who went to pick both her and my son, and they both took him around. showed him places and things. They are friends today. My son and her daughter Oladejo, they are friends. My son and Titilola, they are friends today. They were gisting about there's this girl. Conversations he didn't even have with me. That's my son. He was like, there's this girl. This was within 2 or 3 weeks of him arriving, or 1 month of him arriving in Canada. There was this girl that he was eyeing in class, and so he mentioned this to me. So I think now he and I were talking one day, and I said, "Oh, okay, how is that your babe?" He laughed. He said, "Oh, Dad, come off it, come off it, come off it." And we had fun. So that's the sort of relationship we're trying to breed. A relationship that is friendly, that's open. One thing we try to encourage a lot is open communication. We communicate a lot, and I believe God has used that to help us in addressing the downsides. A few downsides here and there. It's helped us a lot.
Wow. As in, the way you said you handled your children just shows you are very good with communication. It wasn't putting them down. It wasn't shutting them down. It was acknowledging. You acknowledge them. You were able to respond to their concerns individually. You didn't say, you know what, children, I am the father and I'm not going to stay alone. I'm going to get married. You have no business being here. It just shows how much. So I am imagining if you had that kind of conversation with your children, then I just know that the way you converse with your wife is also excellent and beautiful. So Ma, I want to ask you this same question, right? Was it easy to make that decision to get married again? Was it easy?
Well, for me, it wasn't really that easy, in the sense that my previous marriage had not been an exciting one. So what I needed and what I told God was that I didn't want to spend my old age alone, but at the same time, I wasn't desirous of having another issue, almost like setting yourself up for failure all over again. So I had decided that I had thought through it, like you said, I think a lot. And I had said to myself, there are 2 choices or 3 choices. 1, sleep around, ruled out, it can't happen. 2, marry, become a second wife, ruled out, it can't happen. 3, marry a man that is single by whatever reason. And this presented itself. But because I've been through a bad patch, I had to think through it very well. Did I really want to, make this move again? But because of all the things I saw, I decided, I said to myself, look, I'm going to take a chance. And if it doesn't work, I will not come out of the relationship. I will just, like I always say, I will just zap. I will just jump out somewhere and go and stay there. But I won't say I'm not doing it again. But I will run away. I always tell him I will run. So my decision was, look, if it doesn't work, I will run. But I desired for it to work, so that I won't have to go into all that and then start again, be single again and all that. So for me, it was mixed bag. I really wanted to. And at the same time, I was a bit apprehensive. And I already had a way out, which he found very strange. How can you already think of a way out of something you're not even into yet? But I said, because of my own experiences, I needed to be able to protect myself, to say, you know what, I'll just jack and go and get a place somewhere and run. You won't see me again. I'll be just there. But over and above that, when I told my daughter too that I wanted to get married, she said, why do you want to do that again? Because she knew what I went through. So why are you doing that? And I said, well, this time I don't think it's going to be like last time. It's going to be better and all of that. And she said something. She said, look, as long as you're happy in it, then I support you. But if you're not happy in it, please don't get into it. That was a conversation we had. So it has proven to be a good decision for me. Or else I would still be on my own, single and all that. Well, I'm okay with it to be single, but it's not the best place to be. And so you can fall into sin, anything can happen to you. So it's not the best place to be. And companionship is very good. So I believe that God actually, it's almost like God compensating me. Let me use that word, because that's what I told somebody, a friend of mine. I said, look, in this instance, God has almost compensated me for all the years of pain, and compensated me with somebody who I mean, when we say we don't really afford, people think we're actually lying, or we're making up stories, or we're just trying to, you understand? We're just trying to feel, I mean, for people to feel that there's nothing. But truly, honestly, we have our differences. That's why I say we don't quarrel and shout. We have our differences, but we iron them out. And I think I learned that from my parents. My parents were like that. You could never see them shouting at each other in front of us. They always just go to the room and go and settle all the quarrels. So I believe that this has been a good decision for me to have gone through. And I learned a lot from my parents, and and people will say, "Oh, people are always together. They're always gumming with him," and I'm like, "Okay, it's my friend. So if I don't go with him, one day I told him, I said, okay, if we quarrel now, who will I now talk to? So if we quarrel, then I will be looking for who to talk to. Then I'll be looking for which friend should I now call, or which sister should I call, or what should I do?" So it's difficult to fight your best friend.
Yeah, I'm so happy for the both of you. I am so happy that you found each other and found this safe space to just be and to flourish as a person and together and create this beautiful family. Having children, I already love your children, even though I've not met them, from your story, your experience with them, and all. Thank you for sharing your stories. I still have plenty of questions I want to ask, but I'm looking at the time and I'll say, oh my God, we've done almost 1 hour, 30 minutes. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm telling you, and I still have so many questions bubbling in my head. All I want to do is to ask, is it possible that in some time in the future we can call you again and have this conversation, talk about some aspects that we didn't talk about and all? If you would agree, I will be so grateful.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, particularly looking at it from a viewpoint of if the experience we are sharing is going to um, touch something in someone's life, someone who might be going through a similar experience. I mean, with all pleasure, would be available. I mean, to say this, I mean, we talked about faith. We're people of faith. We are children of God. In the local church where we worship, well, we are privileged to be the coordinators of the couples fellowship for that church. And before we took on that responsibility, because it's a responsibility, we weighed it, we actually reluctantly accepted to take it on. But haven't taken it on, I mean, for different reasons. We have several commitments here and there. And by the way, we are both wired. Incidentally, that's one of the interesting things. She wants to do things, anything she's committed to, she wants to do it well. Same here. I mean, that's sort of background and training we've got. And so we won't just accept anything for the heck of it, and say, okay, and carry the title and just be moving around like that. But we want to take it on and take it on with a sense of responsibility and do it in a manner that's impactful. So anyway, so we've taken on that responsibility recently, about 5 months ago. And between then and now, I mean, we're thankful to God, the little successes that God himself is making through that ministry,
Wow.
And so from that viewpoint, if there's no other justification for saying yes to you, that's more than enough justification. We want to be able to make impact in whatever God puts in our hands, to do. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I'm so happy that you picked up that responsibility. Sometimes it's what we pass through it becomes a blessing, not just for us, but for others. Once we allow ourselves to get into that space and God use us to reach other people too who would be passing through that road and will need guidance and all. Thank you so much. So I am going to, I'm concluding is a yes, and then we'll look for sometime in the future and then set another time to look at some other aspects we have not looked at. So listener, as you listen to this, if you have questions, please just drop them. Don't be worried. We will definitely get them back by the grace of God, and they'll be here to answer your questions and have other conversations, maybe things that I have not even thought about. So just write your questions and we'll be able to handle them. Thank you so much once again, Mr. and Mrs. Oladejo, for your time, for spending it here with us on Rings That Bind.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Writing us.
All right, so listener, I want to extend our birthday wishes to our executive producer, Mr. Michael Kolawole. Yesterday was his birthday. We celebrated him, and today on Rings That Bind, we want to say happy birthday, sir. May God continue to expand and enlarge your post. May the years ahead be beautiful, be memorable. As we are doing this touching lives, may God also send people that will touch your life in different ways that you desire. May this year open for you bounds that you have never thought of and you've never dreamt possible. In Jesus' name. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all that you do for us on Rings That Bind. Thank you for your commitment to making this project work. I appreciate you. It's been a pleasure working with you to do this. All right, so this is where we end it on Rings That Bind today. We'll come your way again next week with another guest. We'll be having a different conversation, but a conversation that you will definitely learn from and benefit from. Have a beautiful night rest. It's goodbye from all of us in the studio.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.